Welcome to yet another episode of CFS Conversations. And we are joined by none other than Michael Fakhri, the UN Special Rapporteur on the right to food. And we'll be hearing in a moment from him, why does this matter? Where are we? Are people's right to food in jeopardy? Michael, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Agandro. It's a pleasure to be here.
We're so delighted, Michael, to finally be able to do this. You and I have exchanged a couple of messages over the years. We should do this. It's happening.
It's wonderful to be here, in person no less.
Indeed, indeed. It means that we probably are getting ourselves in a place where the pandemic, people have contained it a little. But even as we are starting to see light at the end of that tunnel, here we are, confronted with probably the worst global food crisis, millions hungry. And I wouldn't even pretend I want to get there. Michael, you're the person who worries about people's right to food. Tell us a little more about you.
Well, first, thank you. It's really a pleasure to be here. And it's a pleasure to be at the CFS plenary. I think there's a special energy going on because everyone's here in person for the first time in a long time. My job as the Special Rapporteur on the right to food is to be an independent expert. So I'm the eyes, ears, and good conscience for the United Nations systems to focus on hunger, malnutrition, famine from a human rights perspective. I've been in my mandate for 2 years, so I've been following the pandemic from the beginning. I talk to governments, I talk to civil society, social movements, labor unions, activists, international organizations, and I learn from everybody. That's the other part of my job. And even if the COVID-19 virus disappeared tomorrow, we would still be in a very bad situation with the food crisis.
How so, Michael? Why would that still be the case? What was the situation like?
Well, this is an old problem. The world's food systems have been struggling for 60 years. Hunger goes up and down, but hunger rates have been problematic since 2015 most recently. But there was also a hunger crisis in 2008, a hunger crisis a little after that in 2011, 2012. And so there's something structural in many of the world's food systems. And in my latest report, which I'm going to present to the General Assembly, I identify some of those structural problems. The financial system doesn't work properly, the trade system doesn't work properly, and corporate power has been dominating food systems since the 1960s and 1970s. The problem is the power is not in the hands of the people who make our food. It's not in the hands of the peasants, of the pastoralists, of the workers, of the people who work in our kitchens. And the most marginalized people don't have the power to choose the food that makes them healthy, strong, and that's culturally appropriate.
Michael, the challenge sounds daunting, the way you have structured it, and especially because it feels like it's too far removed from the people who suffer most and the people that we depend on, the producers. Are you seeing enough to try and solve the problem at every level? And if yes, what are you seeing, or should we retire in despair?
What I've learned in the pandemic is it's not just difficult, but I've also heard stories, and I've borne witness to stories of hope and success. I've seen communities coming together, neighbors coming together, local governments, whether it's cities or subnational governments, figuring things out. Some national governments have had good plans. So my first recommendation to national governments has been, you know what works. You know from the pandemic how to make sure that people are getting access to good food. Things like universal meals for children through school, things like direct cash transfer, things like supporting local governments. Unfortunately, what's happening is governments are treating those measures as temporary responses to an emergency. My first suggestion is look at what has worked in the last 2 years, make them permanent and build upon them. So we have some evidence, all governments have evidence. What was still missing, so this is what I've described is at the national and subnational level. What's still missing is an international government-led plan of action. We have lots of reports and experts and international organizations putting their ideas forward. We know what needs to be done. What's missing is that coordinated action by governments working together. Because if we've learned anything in this pandemic, all of our lives are interconnected. So we need governments to cooperate and coordinate together.
I like the fact that you said we are interconnected, meaning the solutions that we come up with have to be not only coordinated but work for all of us. And that's what we pride ourselves in trying to do here at CFS, the Committee, UN Committee on World Food Security, which is be that platform where we bring different voices like you as Michael and others, including those of governments and of people that are worst affected, represented by the civil society and indigenous peoples mechanism. What do you see as the role that CFS should be playing in helping address all these issues that we're describing?
Yes. So what makes the CFS powerful and unique is first and foremost is that the right to food is in its vision statement. It's in black and white. And the reason that makes the CFS powerful is that human rights is the language of action, and it provides a clear framework on how to work together. It requires countries to cooperate, and it provides a specific framework on how to work together. So it's built into the very bones of the CFS. So the right to food is at the heart of it. But also, it includes, it's the most inclusive space on the issue of food security, but most importantly is it has a unique and powerful mechanism that is the civil society and indigenous peoples mechanism. What this mechanism does is it is open to all groups, all peoples, indigenous peoples, but pastoralists, peasants, fishers, from all over the world, from all the regions of the world. And the first thing they have to do is they have to learn how to work together. It's a space of solidarity within the UN system that puts the power in the hands of the people. This is amazing. This is what gives the CFS legitimacy more than other places, a unique form of legitimacy. That means when governments come to the CFS, they can hear directly from the people, and the people can speak with a unified voice. And that's what human rights is about, building and fostering and nurturing that relationship between governments and the people. And so this is the space of solutions, of cooperation, of solidarity, and of action.
Sounds like we have a special moment, Michael, a moment when we are faced with a massive crisis, but a moment where we can make our efforts count. What is your parting shot?
Life is not going to get easier. There's going to be more conflict. There's going to be more hunger. We have no choice but to work together. And CFS is that place. And if it doesn't work here, we have to find another place. But there's no choice but to cooperate. And if governments don't listen to the people, they're going to experience more conflict and more instability. So my parting message is directly to governments. Listen to your people. Listen to your people and respond to your people.
There you have it. It's not going to get any easier, but that doesn't mean that we stop trying to fix the situation we have found ourselves in. We have the ability, but we can only do it if we all work together, governments and its people, in the words of the UN Special Rapporteur on the Right to Food, Michael Fakhri. Michael, thank you very much for being with us today.
Thank you very much.